assume many of you are students or trying to get into UX, and so my talk is kind of focused around you. So obviously, we're going to be talking about portfolios today, but let me introduce myself. So I think the number one question I always get is, how did you get into what you do today? And it's kind of a funny story. And this is going to date me a little. I actually, in high school, MySpace was still a thing for me. And so and for those of you that never used MySpace, you can actually customize your profile with code. And so I taught myself how to code and design for the sole purpose of making my MySpace awesome. And I thought it was pretty cool. At one point, I had hidden my comment box so nobody could even post on my page because I just wanted it to be as minimal as possible. And now I kind of laugh at that. And so I taught myself how to code, and then I went to the University of Utah with the idea in mind that I would be an ER doctor. Because I took medical anatomy courses in high school, and so when I got to college, I took my first pre-med biology course, and I ended up failing it because I'm terrible at math. And so I was like, I don't know what to do with myself, and so at the time, the University of Utah didn't have their course catalog online, which will also date me, and their course catalog was like a book this thick. And so I literally went through every page looking for courses to take, and they actually had a web design class that I was like, I didn't even know you could take a class on this or do anything with this, and so I was like, well, I like doing it, so I guess I'll take a class, and I ended up loving it. And so I got my bachelor's in communication new media, and I'm sure this doesn't even exist at the U anymore, and then I got a minor in arts technology, which was kind of like the web design of the time. Courses that they had. And so from there, I worked at several companies in the Valley doing graphic design, and then I moved into UX a while ago, and I earned a certificate with NYU in UX, and then also with the Nielsen Norman Group. And I'm currently at Workfront as a senior UX designer. I've been there for about 7 months, and I love it. So let's get into why you're all here. So the first question that I want to pose is, why is a portfolio important? And I know some of you are probably thinking, do I really need to have one? What's the point? And so let me tell you kind of a story of my own experience that kind of made me realize, oh yeah, you do. So quite a few years ago, I was actually looking for a new job. I was ready to leave the place that I was at, and so I was working with a recruiter, and there was a company in Indiana that was interested in me, and so they flew me out to Indianapolis, and I was like, wow, I feel like such a big shot. Somebody wants to fly me out for an interview. So they fly me out the night before the interview, and I feel really prepared, and I had been talking to the recruiter leading up to this point, and she had kind of given me the agenda of how the interview was going to go, and the first thing on the docket was presentation. And so I asked her several times, I was like, do I need to prepare something? Is there a design challenge that they want me to do? She said, oh, no, I think they're just giving you a presentation on the company and the position, so don't worry about it. So I was like, okay. So I get there the night before, a nice town car picks me up, and they house me in this nice hotel in Indiana. And so the morning comes, and I get ready, and I'm feeling really good about myself, and and this kind of goes to show what time, a few years ago, Uber wasn't a thing, and so I was like, well, I don't want to get a taxi. It was literally a 10-minute walk, and so I was like, I'm just gonna go. And also, Google Maps wasn't what it is today, and so I was like, whatever. And so I start on my way, and it starts to drizzle a little, and I'm like, okay. So I start walking a little faster, and I get to the office, and I check in. I was probably 5 or 10 minutes early, and I check in with the lady, and she's like, oh yeah, okay. And so she disappears for 15 minutes. And I'm sitting in their lobby, and so she finally comes back, and she's like, so we actually have 3 campuses in Indiana, and you're at the wrong one. I was like, oh my gosh, okay. And so she's like, but it's only like a 15-minute walk from here. And so I was like, well, will you call them and let them know that I'm gonna be late? So she's like, yeah, that's fine. So now it's like actually raining, and I have curly hair, and so any of the girls in the audience know what happens to your hair at that point. And so I'm like running like in high heels down like downtown Indianapolis, like trying to get to this other building. And so finally I reach it, and I check in there, and they lead me to this this conference room. And so I'm there, and like people start coming in, and they're all like execs and like leadership, management, whatever. There's probably like 15 people coming in. And so they're all introducing themselves. Oh, we're so excited, like whatever, what do you need to set up? And I'm like, oh, they're probably talking to somebody else. So I'm like, yeah, like nice to meet you. And somebody else is like, do you have like a thumb drive? Like, and so then I start to realize, oh, I'm the one giving the presentation, and I have nothing prepared. And so I kind of tell the guy that had brought me out there, I was like, I apologize, but nobody had informed me that I was supposed to be giving a presentation. And like everybody's faces in the room just go like, you're kidding me. Like you just flew out here, you have nothing to show. So I was like, but I have a portfolio. So I brought it up and thankfully saved the day. I did end up getting an offer, obviously, but the guy that had brought me out there later in the day, like I had another interview with him, he like apologized profusely. He was like, I'm so sorry. Like I thought the recruiter would have told you that you were supposed to prepare something. He was like, but you like saved it beautifully. He was like, so good on you having like a portfolio to show and some work to show. So the next time you think you don't need a portfolio, just remember that story and how terrible it was. And just think of yourself in that moment. And so along those lines, let's talk about what the role of a portfolio really is, besides saving your butt at an interview like that. So it's really to kind of demonstrate your skill, to show people like clients or people that you're applying for, kind of what you do and the history of your work. It's kind of a yearbook per se of like recent work that you've worked on. It's also to build professional relationships. I'm sure many of you went out and tried to find my portfolio, even though Ben said that it was hard to find. So just also to build professional relationships and to showcase your work, and also to kind of tell a story and demonstrate your thought process. And so with that, content really is king or queen, you could say, as for your portfolio. When you think about starting your portfolio or going to redesign it, you really want to create your content first. And I say that because if you start to design your portfolio, you're going to be trying to fit content into what you just designed, and it's going to be kind of like the cart before the horse, or the horse before the cart in this scenario. And so you're going to be making up phony content, like testimonials of people that like your work, or you're just going to be creating bogus content, or you're not going to be able to fit what you need to in your portfolio. So types of things to include: case studies, photos, notes, and also mock-ups are great to tell your story. And some of the tools, these probably seem kind of obvious, but when you're starting to think about crafting that story, start using like a text editor, Google Docs, or Evernote, or even just your notes product or software, and start just writing your story. It's going to be the easiest way to write your story and go back and edit it. And I can't stress the next one enough. So Dropbox, Box, wherever you keep your files, when you're working on a project, start storing that content. Like whether you're doing it today, keep a folder and keep all your notes, all of your interviews, anything that you used for that project. Otherwise, like down the road when you go to create this this case study, you're going to be like, where are these notes? And you're not going to be able to find half of them. So try and keep it somewhere where you can go back to it later on. And then Medium. This is actually a great place. Once you've crafted that story and you've put together all of your photos and documents, maybe go and post it on Medium as kind of a test bed to your case study. You're going to be able to get it out to a bigger audience and kind of see like how does it fit? Like, are people responding to it well? And you can also, if you have kind of just like random one-off things that you're doing, maybe just like an A/B test for something simple, go and write this on Medium. Like, it's the perfect place, and we can all learn from each other by posting more content like that. And then how to curate your work. So this is kind of a huge part of building a portfolio, being able to nix the projects that really aren't relevant to you anymore or at all. So if you did a logo for your uncle's dog's sister's friend in high school, it's not going to belong in your portfolio. Your portfolio is supposed to be a reflection of who you are today and the jobs that you want to get tomorrow. And sometimes your most recent project isn't your most relevant. So don't think just because it was the last project you did, you should include it. Also, the fewer projects, obviously, the better. If you have 3 to 6 projects in your portfolio, you're going to be able to craft those stories a lot better. You are going to have more time to spend on these things and really build that into something great. If you have 80 plus projects on there, it's going to confuse your users, the audience that's coming. They're not going to know like what represents you. Like, this person has so much in there. Like, what is the focus here? So really keeping it simple and straight to the point. And then I've got a few examples of good and bad design practices. So the first one here on the left, you can see, so this is kind of your work area, and this person has got several different kinds of projects, and the focus is really not there. And they're kind of weird images that you kind of think like bleed together, and the color scheme's all off, and it's just kind of all over the place. You don't really have a clear definition of where one project starts and where the other begins. And then the one on the right is kind of a better example. It's giving you a title of that project and kind of a short description. There's a clear line of where one project ends and where the other one begins. So this one, we're all guilty of it. So on the left, we have kind of our sexy dribble shot that, those phones are kind of floating out in hyperspace and they look beautiful, but they're just mostly eye candy. Where on the right, there's clear lines connecting together the different mock-ups. There's annotated notes. It's really telling a story. It's not just sexy shots. And then next, so we all have sexy work, right, that we want to show. So I'm not saying like, don't do it, there's a time and a place. So on the left, if you go and search Behance for Nike, there's literally hundreds of projects where people have taken it upon themselves to recreate Nike in their own vision. And this is kind of a huge no-no. Redesigning Fortune 500 companies, although it seems like a fun and cool thing to put in your portfolio, it's actually kind of a lie. You're able to craft that story around whatever you want. You are essentially trying to tell a story that isn't true. And also it's been done by 100 other designers. So I would really try and stay away from that. And then on the right, that's a sample of my work, but that's just work that I have done. So I'm just saying, use work that you actually created or worked on. Here I've got a couple examples of some really great portfolios by people in the industry. The one on the left you kind of had seen before. Really simple, the work is really the shining star. And then Helen Tran, I saw her speak at a conference a couple years ago. She actually worked at Spotify. I think she's kind of just doing her own thing now. I would highly recommend checking out her portfolio. It's really simple. She really has only 3 case studies on there, even though she's done plenty of other work. But it's really easy to read and go through. And then a couple other examples of some great work. I think the one on the left is a guy from Google. He only has 4 projects on there. And then the guy on the right, I'm not sure where he is, but he kind of has an intermix of case studies and then also some blog posts that he's written, which is okay. You don't need to only do projects or design projects in your portfolio. In fact, it's encouraged to do more. And then I've got a couple of poor designs, and they're kind of on the other end of the spectrum. Okay. The one on the right, these are actually both really big names in design today, so I kind of think it's funny to like show them. The one on the right, or the left, sorry, is super, super simple. It's good looking, right? If you go there, those balls kind of like bounce and create a pattern, but there's no work. This is literally the whole thing. It has links to her social media sites. There's no anything about her work. I'm sure you could probably get some of it on like maybe Instagram or LinkedIn, but what's the point of this, honestly? And then on the right, this person, if you Google their name, this is the first thing that comes up under their name. And they actually have a better looking portfolio out there, but it's harder to find. And so make sure you Google yourself before you just like rely on this or start archiving things like this, because this is obviously from like 2010. All right, and then now for case studies. How do you craft that story? So I like to think of them in three distinct parts. So why, how, and what. And so the why is really, why did you do this project? What was the thing that started this project? Was it a company initiative? Was it a new product that you were trying to launch? The how did you do this project? What was the meat and potatoes that went into this project? And then the what was the outcome of the project? I've kind of broken it down a little bit more. So you don't have to do it necessarily in this order, but these are some good things to include. So the problem, so the why, what kickstarted this project. State the goal. Was there a goal that the company wanted as the outcome of this? And your role. And when I talk about my role in a project, you need to be really clear about what it was. Don't falsify what you did, whether it was small or big. The worst thing you can do is go into an interview and have lied about what you did with the project and said you did more for it than you actually did. People are going to see right through you. I've been in interviews before with people where they've obviously made it out to seem like they had done more for the project than they had. There's no fault in being a small part of a project. You just need to be truthful about it. All right, and so how do you put this together? So, like I said before, all of those notes and photos and wireframes, whatever, that you kept in your Dropbox or Box folder, this is where that comes in. So you want to show any pictures of whiteboarding that you did, Post-it notes, workshops, and make sure you document this along the way. I know I have several meetings a day, and the last thing on my mind is, oh, I need to take a picture of this to add to my folder. But it's good practice to do. Also your design process. What sketches did you do, wireframing, anything like that, prototyping. And then also your user interviews. Keep a script of it. That's going to be valuable to show off and also show that you are able to craft a script. Keep videos if you can, if the user lets you record them. And then also documenting pictures of interviewing is important. And then also your final work. So what was the outcome of all these things together? And then lastly, the what. So any learnings that you had. So no project is going to go smooth. And if it did go smooth, then you probably did it wrong. So what were the bumps in the road? Where did you guys pivot? Did you learn that this wasn't going to be feasible? Document that, talk about it. It's just going to be things to share and learn. And then also your conclusion. So what was the impact of the project? What were the results? Or are you still working on it? Is it something that's continual? Did something else spur from this project? Try and show that. And I know several of you are students or trying to get into UX, and so you might be thinking, well, I don't have any projects to show. And the only ones I do have to show are school projects. Like, should I include it? Yes, definitely. Everybody knows when you go out and apply for like an internship or that first job and all you have is schoolwork, we understand that. It's not like we've all been in that place. So showing that work is really important. But like I said before, don't gloss over the bad things that happened. We all know that there's probably somebody that didn't show up for half the semester that you had to carry their weight. So talk about that and how that affected the project. Talk about if you set up interviews with people and they didn't show up. Talk about those things. It's things that you learned and you know that you're going to do better next time. Also, for some of you that have NDAs that you've signed for companies or projects, getting around that. I don't know if I have the exact solution for you, but I mean, my advice is to read through those NDAs and make sure like what you can show and what you can't. It may just be swapping out a photo or changing some text or just not sharing something. And if it is kind of airtight, maybe you need to password protect that project online. So you can still show it, but you just, who you show it to, you know. And then also, for those of you that just simply have no work, I would say, obviously apply for internships, volunteer work, freelance work, and there's also like on Dribble or Behance, they have like UX, UI daily challenges. Use that to kind of show off your work and your thought process. I know I said don't do like Fortune 500 companies, but I see that as a different exercise. I think it's showing you know how to take like something and create a component out of it. And so, ready, set, build. I have a little video to show from friends before I tell this next story, so I'll show this. And sorry it's a little crass.
Buffet.
Yeah?
Can I get your autograph? I'm your biggest fan.
Oh, you're my biggest fan? I've always wanted to meet you. Why? Sure, yeah.
Wow. Well, thanks a lot. I just want to say, I think you're really talented.
You're just saying that because you're my biggest fan.
But I just got Phoebe Buffet's autograph.
Oh, you're Phoebe's fan?
Oh, yeah. I've seen all her movies.
Movies?
That was Phoebe Buffet, the porn star.
Hey, Phoebe's not here, is she?
No. Oh, great. Did you get a movie?
Yeah, but I don't think it's the kind you're gonna like.
You didn't get more movies that are going to have us reaching for the tissues all night, did you?
Sort of.
Guys, what's going on?
Phoebe's a porn star!
What?
Yeah!
Phoebe Buffet in Buffet the Vampire Lair.
That's Phoebe. Where did you get that?
Well, down at the adult video place on Bleecker. And I saw Joey was about to go in, so I ran in ahead of him to surprise him. And then I pretended that I didn't know he was in there.
I mean, I can't believe this. You know, I mean, you think you know someone? Even Phoebe, who's always been somewhat of a question mark. This is so bizarre. I guess it kind of makes sense that she had such a terrible childhood.
I had a terrible childhood and I don't do porn.
Yes, but you were dead inside.
I'm gonna take that back.
What?
I can't watch that. I mean, that's Phoebe.
Yeah, you're right. We shouldn't watch that. Absolutely not. You know, maybe a little bit. What was just the first half?
Hey, no, this is wrong, you guys. Phoebe's our friend.
But I'm not going to watch it.
Yeah, good for you, Joe.
I thought I'd find you here. Nosferatu.
Are you going to plunge your stake into my dark places?
Actually, I was kind of hoping it would be the other way around. Hold on a second. What is that on her ankle?
Her ankle is what you're watching?
Well, it's hard to tell. Oh gosh, she just stopped moving.
Just doing her job.
first bought my first domain, I bought brookes-bill.com, and I was like, that's perfect. This was before I thought like a dash in a URL was stupid. But it was the only one that I could find. Brookes-bill.com was not available, and it would take me several years to figure out why it wasn't available. So I had that domain name for several years, and I would apply for jobs, and I would never hear back. And I'd be like, that's weird. That person wanted me to apply, or I would have people, kind of like reach out to me about things, and I never hear back from them. And you're probably like seeing where this is going. And I don't recommend you do it. If you Google Brooke Bell, there is a very famous, I guess, adult film actress named Brooke Bell. And so it took me several years to figure it out. One of my old bosses actually pointed it out to me, and I was like, you're kidding me, right? And so that's a lesson to be learned. Google yourself, because you never know who shares the same name as you. So that's why I've rebranded myself as Fourth Star Studio. So just kind of a funny anecdote. But on that note, when you're going to build your website, make sure you brand yourself. You can use your name if it's not tied to somebody like that. But I would make sure your name is easy to spell. There's not a lot of Joe Schmoes out there that have the same name as you that are in UX, so people are landing on the right site. And I mean, go ahead and feel free to brand yourself if you want to, like I have. There's no shame in it. It's just something that I've done. But I think make sure to Google yourself and understand what your name represents out there. And then also when you're branding yourself, try and keep it consistent across your assets. So like your resume and your business card and your website, try and make them all match. Also, think about how you want to be seen. So if you were to give, if somebody was to take one thing away after visiting your website, what would you want that to be? Would it be, wow, this person's a really good product manager that really knows research, or UX designer that really values design systems? Like, think about that when you're building it. If there was, what do you want to stand for when somebody comes? And then I don't think I need to say this. We're a room full of people in the industry with internet design for the web. Let's not make PDFs. This is what we do on a day-to-day basis. It's kind of a no-no to just have a PDF out there. So make sure you're building for the web. And I'm sure some of you are thinking, well, I don't know how to code. So I kind of have a few points of things to make it a lot easier. The first thing you need to do is buy a domain, like I talked about. So once you figured out what your brand is, go out and find that domain. And then you need to host it. And hosting is basically plugging that name into the internet so that it works. And so when people type in that address, this is what pulls up. And then also install a CMS or a content management system like WordPress or Squarespace. And that's going to be kind of the back end of your website where you're going to be able to control it, especially if you don't know any code. That's where you're going to go to edit things. There's going to be form fields basically that you fill out. Maybe you'll need to know a little bit of code if you want to customize it. And then there's also so many themes out there. There's free ones, there's ones you can buy. Squarespace and WordPress both come with tons already loaded in, so you're going to be able to find something that you like. I personally like to pay for some and then customize them. I find that the ones that you pay for usually have a lot more built in to it, and it's a lot more flexible. And they usually only cost like $30. And then also there's tutorials with a lot of those ones that you buy, but there's also tutorials out there about everything, as we all know. So just make sure you look for it. If you don't have an answer to something, there's probably somebody out there that's documented it for you. And then lastly, you push it live, which I'll talk about in just a sec. So I just want to talk about a couple of the tools that I use. So I have been doing this for forever, and so I've been using GoDaddy to buy my domains and to host it. They're kind of looked down on. They kind of have an unsavory marketing scheme, but I've just use them forever. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, it's just what I've used. But they have a way that you can kind of plug in CMSs when you are launching this, and so it kind of makes it easy. There's also Google domains, DreamHost, and HostGator that I've heard good things about. And then also your CMS, Squarespace, and WordPress. I use WordPress just because it's what's been out there forever. They have tons of plugins, easy to use. And then Squarespace, I'm sure you've all heard of it. It's actually pretty user-friendly, and a lot of people use it. And then Envato Market is kind of where I've gone to buy themes in the past, or Theme Forest. But like I said before, there's free themes that you can buy with, or you can have with Squarespace and WordPress. And then also try and think of your website as your digital business card. The main takeaway people really want to get out of your portfolio, besides what it is you do and your skill set, is how to contact you. So make sure that that's front and center, whether it's your email address, your LinkedIn, or phone number, if you want to put that out there. I don't personally do. And then also have links to your other social platforms, so your Dribble, your Behance, to show more work. So if you're documenting like logo design work elsewhere, have links to that. It's valuable information. And then also in the About You section. So if you need to have some sort of description about who you are and some key takeaways people can take with them. And then this also is probably something I don't have to talk about much, but make sure your website's responsive. Probably about half of the people that come to your portfolio are going to be viewing it on a phone, so the last thing you want is for it to break. And then launch. I kind of glossed over this a little bit ago, but I guess when you launch, you're probably wondering. It's honestly up to you. I would say do it sooner than later. If you wait, content is going to get old. And if you're working on this thing for a year, you're going to have to go back and update several things. Take a couple weekends, maybe a month, to put it together and just launch it. Even if you don't feel it's ready, just try and put it out there. The last thing you want is people to show up and have it be a 404 error or under construction. And then now that you've launched, now what? You guys waiting? That's okay. I can talk loud. Can you guys hear me? Okay. So now that you've launched, there's always more to do. Like I said, try and push it before it's even ready, and you're going to be able to go back and work on things, update case studies, add to projects. Also, update content regularly. Last year's Shining Star projects aren't going to be this year's, so make sure. Okay. Sorry. That's okay. Just trying to keep your content relevant, and then also keeping content fresh. If you have a blog or a podcast that you do on the side, include that. So if somebody comes back every month, they're going to be seeing new content. And then also make sure when you're building your site to include analytics. That's going to be something big, so you can go back and look at who's visiting your site. There's been several times where I have applied for jobs, and you can actually go into your analytics and see their IP address coming to your website. A lot of the times, if they're bigger companies, they have their IP named, and so I know, like, oh, I just applied for that job and somebody actually looked. So it's kind of nice to see. It's also going to show you where people are coming from, like geographically, and those sorts of things. And then also make sure to keep an eye on it. Make sure you pay your hosting bill so people don't show up and nothing's there. And make sure you're updating like plugins and stuff if you have those. The last thing you want is something to break. And that's all I have. So thanks, guys.